Have you ever wondered what daily life looks like in a place where cows roam freely and are honored by millions, while entire families struggle with poverty, and bustling cities grapple with chaos, grime, and intense cultural challenges? Today, we're taking you on a journey into the heart of India, an ancient land of contrasts and complexities. Prepare yourself for surprising insights, compelling stories, and eye-opening questions that will spark your curiosity from the very first. Second, hi everyone, I'm Lucas, and this is Unmasked Planet. I'm thrilled you're here to explore our fascinating world with me. If you believe in curiosity, empathy, and the power of collective learning, you've come to the right place. Let's show our support for one another. Comment below with the phrase, "Together we learn, together we grow." And don't forget to subscribe and join this ever-growing community. India, a land of vibrant colors, soul-stirring music, flavorful cuisine, and astonishing diversity, occupies a vast territory in South Asia. Home to more than 1.4 billion people, it's a nation that has intrigued travelers, historians, and thinkers for centuries. Yet for many, India is defined by a series of swirling contrasts. On one hand, you have a soaring space program, thriving tech cities like Bengaluru, and a buzzing startup scene in Mumbai. On the other hand, there are countless rural communities with limited access to clean water, education, and basic health care. And of course, there's the iconic image of cows wandering along crowded streets, seemingly unbothered by the pandemonium of traffic honks and bustling footpaths. The reverence for cows in India has deep religious and cultural roots, primarily influenced by Hindu traditions, which regard cows as symbols of wealth, strength, motherhood, and generosity. The result is a country where cows can walk freely, in many areas protected from harm by both law and custom. However, these sacred animals share space with another sobering reality: widespread poverty. Despite India's rapid economic growth in recent decades, income inequality remains a significant concern, particularly affecting women. Many Indian women face not only economic hardship, but also social barriers rooted in patriarchal structures that have existed for centuries. This has led to various initiatives, both governmental and grassroots, to empower women through education, microfinance, and professional training. Yet the process is ongoing, and the challenges are not easily overcome. When outsiders speak about India's so-called dirtiness, they often reference the mountains of litter, open sewers, and general lack of infrastructure in many cities and villages. It's important to acknowledge that sanitation is a massive public concern, with the Indian government pouring billions of dollars into initiatives like the Swachh Bharat, Clean India campaign. The program aims to eliminate open defecation, improve waste management, and promote hygiene through education and stricter regulations. Still, progress can be slow. Imagine a jam-packed train station in New Delhi, with thousands of commuters rushing in every direction, stalls selling piping, hot chai, and local hawkers peddling wares. The frenetic pace of life in these hubs can overshadow deeper systemic issues, such as insufficient waste disposal and limited access to clean toilets, especially in poorer districts. Women, in particular, bear the brunt of inadequate sanitation facilities. Many endure indignity and even risk, as the lack of private or safe restroom access can put them in vulnerable situations. Yet, the story of India is not one of hopelessness. It's also a story of resilience, ambition, and cultural richness. The multiple languages, distinct traditions, and varied local cuisines are staggering in their diversity. Travel from the Himalayan foothills in the north to the lush backwaters of Kerala in the south, and you'll encounter entirely different cultures, dialects, and perspectives. Life in India is a tapestry woven with threads of ancient customs and contemporary challenges. Throughout this video, we'll break down some of the most captivating aspects of Indian life, the significance of cows, and the historical reasons behind their sacred status, the struggles and triumphs of women fighting for equality in a male-dominated environment, and the startling realities behind the label of the dirtiest country in the world. We'll also ask ourselves, is that label entirely fair? Are we painting a colossal nation and its people with too broad a brush? Our goal here is not to judge, but to unmask the complexity of a place that defies easy categorization. We want to See beyond the tourist spots and social media snapshots, beyond the heavily filtered images of grand palaces and scenic beaches. We're aiming to understand the real stories, both the uplifting and the troubling, that define daily existence for so many. As you watch, keep in mind that India's challenges are multifaceted. If you're itching to know more about the specifics, like how religious beliefs affect governance or whether modernization can coexist with tradition, stick around. We're about to delve deeper into all of these points and more. By the end, you'll have a clearer sense of why India is simultaneously revered for its rich heritage and criticized for its glaring social and infrastructural issues. So, hold tight. This journey is only beginning, and I promise it will open your eyes to both the wonders and the harsh truths that shape this incredible country. Ready to explore further? Let's move on to our next section, where we dive headfirst into the cultural and social dimensions that give life in India its unique, often challenging flavor. Now that we've set the stage, let's explore the cultural foundations that shape the sacred status of cows in India and the social realities facing millions of its women. One of the most compelling aspects of Indian culture is its ancient belief systems, which heavily influence modern practices. Hinduism, Jainism, Sikhism, and Buddhism all originated on the Indian subcontinent, and each holds distinct perspectives on the sanctity of life and the treatment of living creatures. However, it's predominantly Hindu tradition that regards the cow as a holy animal. But why? Historically, cows provided essential sustenance: milk, butter, ghee, and manure used for fuel and fertilizer. These elements became integral to rural life and agriculture, thus tying the cow's well-being directly to a family's survival. Over centuries, reverence turned into a deeply spiritual practice, symbolizing nurturing and selfless giving. In many regions, harming a cow is seen not just as a legal offense but a moral and religious wrongdoing. This leads to sometimes unexpected sights, entire traffic lanes coming to a standstill to allow a cow to wander unbothered, or local communities pooling resources to feed stray cows. While these sacred cows roam free, women in India frequently face a much more constrained existence. The patriarchy that persists in numerous parts of the country places a range of limitations, whether it's restricted access to education, pressure to marry early, or limitations on career choices. Even though cities like Mumbai and Delhi present a more modern face, where women work in high-powered roles and break into traditionally male-dominated sectors, many rural regions lag behind in terms of gender equality. India's government has attempted to address these issues through various laws and social programs. The Constitution mandates equality, and there are specific policies aimed at boosting female literacy, encouraging female entrepreneurship, and preventing domestic violence. In fact, India elected its first female prime minister, Indira Gandhi, back in 1966, which was a watershed moment for women's leadership in the country and the world. Despite these advancements, deeply rooted cultural norms can slow progress, and day-to-day realities remain tough for many women, particularly in lower-income or rural communities. When we consider the label of the dirtiest country in the world, we must also factor in how sanitation problems disproportionately affect women. Without proper toilets, women are forced to relieve themselves in fields or secluded areas, risking harassment or worse. Girls sometimes skip school because there are no facilities to accommodate their menstrual needs, an issue that further widens the educational gap. There are ongoing initiatives to improve such conditions, but the scale of the challenge is enormous, given India's vast population and geographical size. Yet it's crucial to avoid generalizations. While India does have areas that suffer from extreme pollution, poor waste management, and inadequate sewage systems, it's also home to places that are actively reversing these trends. There are communities that have embraced eco-friendly practices, from waste segregation to composting, and some cities are implementing modern sewage treatment plants and advanced recycling programs. The complexity lies in India's sheer diversity. What's true for one region may be entirely different for another. Economic factors further entangle this web. India is one of the fastest-growing major economies in the world, and that growth has lifted millions out of poverty. The middle class is expanding, and tech hubs are flourishing. However, with rapid urbanization comes the creation of sprawling, slums where the poorest live in precarious conditions. Many individuals migrate from rural areas to big cities in search of opportunities, only to find themselves in neighborhoods lacking clean water, stable electricity, or reliable waste disposal. In a sense, India represents the best and worst of globalization. It's a place where you can find luxurious malls and five-star hotels alongside people living on less than $1 a day. Some might see this stark contrast as evidence of societal failure, but others interpret it as a sign of a transitioning nation, one that's grappling with its past while thrusting itself headlong into a high-tech future. In this section, we've explored how cultural traditions, especially the sanctity of cows, intersect with social realities, particularly for women, and how these factors tie into broader conversations about sanitation and poverty. The narrative is far from straightforward. As outsiders looking in, we have to ask, what can be done to address these multifaceted problems effectively? Are initiatives like Swachh Bharat, women's empowerment programs, and educational reforms enough to foster significant long-term change? Stay tuned for our next segment, where we'll dive into some more advanced considerations. We'll examine how historical legacies impact policy decisions today, how NGOs and grassroots movements are sparking hope in even the most underserved communities, and why looking at India as a monolithic entity might hinder our ability to truly understand and support positive transformations. Ready to go deeper? Let's keep moving. Moving beyond the foundational elements, let's scrutinize the historical legacies that continue to shape modern India's social and economic landscape. For centuries, India was a patchwork of princely states, diverse kingdoms, and colonial rule under the British Empire. The colonial period left behind massive infrastructure projects like railroads, legal frameworks, and administrative systems, but it also entrenched systemic inequalities. These historical factors inform many of today's debates around land ownership, caste-based inequities, and regional disparities. The caste system itself, while constitutionally discouraged, still exerts a significant influence over social structures in many parts of India. Historically, caste dictated one's occupation, social standing, and even diet. Although contemporary urban life has eroded some of these boundaries, caste discrimination remains a harsh reality in various rural areas. This can impact everything from educational opportunities to job prospects, compounding gender-based challenges for women who also face caste-based prejudice. If we look at government policies designed to address these issues, we can find a complex maze of affirmative action programs, land reform efforts, and subsidies aimed at leveling the playing field. There are also countless non-governmental organizations working tirelessly to provide education, vocational training, and healthcare to marginalized communities. Grassroots movements, often led by women, are tackling issues like domestic violence, child marriage, and access to family planning. These groups serve as vital lifelines, offering resources and community support that can be more effective than any top-down government initiative alone. Another layer to consider is the role of religion and spirituality in everyday decision-making. For instance, the reverence for cows is not merely a symbolic gesture. It's often tied into economic realities, religious rituals, and even political agendas. Some political parties champion the protection of cows to appeal to religious majorities, leading to laws that can affect everything from dietary choices to leather-based industries. In certain states, cow slaughter is banned or strictly regulated, which influences the livelihoods of butchers and farmers alike. This is where the cultural meets the economic, and such intersections can be fraught with tension. Meanwhile, the global image of India as the dirtiest country is complicated by the fact that India is also at the forefront of some of the world's most innovative environmental projects. From large-scale solar farms in Rajasthan to wind energy projects along coastal areas, India's government has expressed ambitious goals for renewable energy. Moreover, some local communities have pioneered waste management practices that turn garbage into energy or compost. The problem is consistency and scale. With over 1 billion people spread across diverse terrains and socioeconomic conditions, replicating success stories nationwide is an enormous challenge. Turning to the plight of women once again, it's essential to highlight the significant headway women have made in various sectors. Women are becoming police officers, airline pilots, scientists, CEOs, and top-tier government officials. Media. Portrayals of Indian women are also gradually shifting, showcasing independent and confident female characters in popular films and TV series. However, these positive steps often contrast sharply with the realities of women in poorer or more traditional communities, where entrenched beliefs about a woman's place in society remain difficult to shake. Some observers might ask why there isn't a more unified national approach to tackling these issues. The answer often lies in India's federal structure and cultural diversity. Individual states wield considerable power over local affairs, meaning policies can vary drastically from one state to another. This decentralization can foster experimentation, where one state tries something innovative, another might follow suit if it proves successful. However, it can also slow collective progress if states lag in implementing critical reforms. Amid these complexities, what stands out most is India's ability to adapt. Historical challenges don't simply vanish, but they blend with modern influences to create something entirely new and dynamic. India's youthful population, among the youngest in the world, adds another layer of optimism, driving social media advocacy, startup culture, and social entrepreneurship. These younger generations are pushing boundaries, leveraging technology to address local problems, and uniting across caste and gender lines in ways older generations might have found unthinkable. In this advanced exploration, we see that India's struggles and triumphs are interwoven. Cows remain sacred, not just as a religious symbol, but as a testament to the cultural identity that has lasted for millennia. Women face obstacles, but also spearhead groundbreaking change in politics, business, and civil society. The nation grapples with pollution and sanitation issues, yet innovative projects give reason to hope. Ultimately, if you view India through a single lens, be it poverty, dirtiness, or tradition, you risk missing the extraordinary resilience and complexity that define daily life for so many. In our next block, we'll circle back to the central questions and begin tying the threads together, clarifying what all of these facts, stories, and data points might mean for the future. Let's now address the questions we posed at the beginning. Is India really defined by sacred cows, oppressed women, and rampant dirtiness? Yes and no. Cows hold a crucial place in Hindu and broader Indian culture, and you'll see them strolling through city streets like they own the road, because, in many ways, they do. Women, especially in rural areas or conservative households, often face severe socioeconomic and cultural barriers. And yes, sanitation challenges have earned India a notorious reputation worldwide. But here's the vital nuance. India can't be encapsulated by any single narrative. Beneath the surface of these headlines and stereotypes lies a country in transition, balancing thousands of years of tradition with the demands of an ever-globalizing world. For every horrific story of gender-based violence, there's a tale of an Indian woman leading a tech startup or commanding a space mission. For every image of garbage-choked rivers, there's a region spearheading a community-based recycling program or a nonprofit turning waste into energy. It's a challenge of scale. With such a large population, problems become magnified. But so do solutions. The very culture that venerates cows also champions hospitality and community, values that foster neighborhoods and networks capable of impressive feats of self-improvement. The same structure that might confine women in some areas is also generating resilient female leaders who advocate for millions. Think of India as a living mosaic, pieces of tradition, shards of modernity, fragments of colonial history, splashes of technological innovation, and pockets of extreme wealth and poverty. This mosaic is dynamic, not static, constantly shifting as policies change, as youth demand different opportunities, as global forces introduce new economic pressures. And yes, the roads can be dusty, the markets chaotic, the rivers polluted, but these conditions coexist with achievements like successful Mars missions, world-class medical facilities, and illustrious universities producing groundbreaking research. For someone planning to visit or simply curious about Indian life, it's vital to manage expectations. Be prepared for contrasts that can be both enlightening and disheartening. One day, you might stand in awe before the Taj Mahal, a masterpiece of architecture and romance. The next, you might be confronted with the harsh living conditions of street dwellers right outside opulent hotels. If you engage with local communities, you'll discover myriad stories of perseverance and hope, often overshadowed by the gloomier images circulated in Western media. If we circle back to the question of whether the label dirtiest country in the world is fair, the answer hinges on perspective. India undeniably faces severe sanitation challenges, yet painting a sprawling, diverse nation with a single stroke can do more harm than good. Such a label risks reducing India to a caricature, ignoring the tireless efforts of both state and civil society to bring about large-scale improvements. Furthermore, many global challenges, like pollution and climate change, aren't unique to India. They're part of a planetary crisis that requires collective solutions. In closing this thematic exploration, let's not forget the overarching point. India is a land of extremes. It can dazzle you with spiritual depth, then shock you with glaring inequalities. It can embrace ancient customs while pioneering cutting-edge technology. It's messy, vibrant, unjust, awe-inspiring, and above all, deeply human. Understanding its complexities requires diving into histories, traditions, policies, and personal stories, all woven together in an immense, ever-evolving tapestry. These nuances remind us that countries and people are rarely just one thing. India is more than a land of sacred cows, oppressed women, and littered streets. It's also a place of unstoppable energy, entrepreneurial spirit, cultural richness, and social progress. Recognizing both sides of the coin is essential if we're to have an honest conversation about what life in India truly entails. Now that we've woven through the complexities, it's time to bring our journey to a close. But before we do, let's take a moment to reflect on what lessons we can learn from India's kaleidoscopic reality. Stay with me just a bit longer, because in the conclusion, we'll focus on how to move forward with empathy, responsibility, and a willingness to dig deeper than surface-level headlines. Congratulations! You've taken a deep dive into one of the world's most multifaceted nations, grappling with questions that have no simple answers. We've delved into the sacredness of cows, a practice rooted in centuries of spiritual and agricultural traditions. We've confronted the stark realities faced by women, from oppression in remote villages to breakthroughs in India's corridors of power. And we've examined the persistent challenge of sanitation, questioning whether labeling India the dirtiest country truly captures the complexity on the ground. As we reflect on these topics, it's clear that no single viewpoint can capture India in all its intricacy. In many ways, the country's contradictions mirror our own personal lives, a tug-of-war between progress and tradition, hope and despair, opportunity and limitation. What stands out most is the resilience of everyday people. Through adversity, be it poverty, societal expectations, or environmental hazards, Indians from all walks of life continue to push boundaries, innovate, and strive for better futures. If there's one major takeaway, it's this. When discussing places as vast and diverse as India, empathy and openness are indispensable. Snap judgments fail to account for regional differences, cultural nuances, and the fierce determination of individuals who won't let adversity define them. A more accurate portrayal requires us to ask questions, listen to stories, and acknowledge that the world's largest democracy contains millions upon millions of unique narratives. Now, I want to leave you with a few parting thoughts. If you're curious about how India's cultural practices intersect with globalization, explore documentaries on grassroots efforts like the Barefoot College that trains rural women in solar engineering, or the Self-Employed Women's Association that empowers female workers. These organizations offer a glimpse into how local solutions can address systemic challenges. You might also check out academic studies on India's renewable energy push, or on the caste system's modern-day evolution for deeper context. And, of course, if you're inspired, or even provoked by what you've learned, there are many ways to get involved. From supporting NGOs that focus on women's education or sanitation infrastructure, to simply educating yourself further and sharing that knowledge, you can contribute to positive change without even setting foot in India. Understanding the complexity of a nation is the first step toward meaningful engagement. Before you go, here's my final call to action. If this journey into India's heart and soul has moved you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and become part of our Unmasked Planet community. We have more eye-opening explorations on the horizon, stories of human resilience, cultural wonders, and the pressing issues that unite or divide us. And while you're here, drop a comment below. I want to hear your biggest takeaway from today's video. What surprised you most? And how do you think the global community can support India's ongoing transformations? Let's keep this conversation going. Check out the recommended video on the screen for another immersive look into a part of our planet that's often misunderstood. Remember, knowledge becomes power only when we share it. So share this video, post your thoughts, and keep asking questions, because that's how we learn, that's how we change, and that's how we truly unmask this amazing world we all call home. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on Unmasked Planet.